timestamp. Where people criticize things, and by all means criticize constructive criticism, but don't draw me out and then read me. It doesn't work like that. Like, what's going on? Like, you can't get onto me and then ask me a question, especially if it's the way I speak. Why would you want to hear me? It don't make sense, man. It doesn't make sense.
I just came into the studio and you were on violence, and I was like, "What's happening?"
I'm not violent. I'm not. What are you saying though, bro?
I'm good, thanks. Hopefully you're good. Hopefully everyone like in the chat and everything is good as well. Just it's still quite busy despite it being the summer. So but hopefully I can be all right.
Paint a picture, obviously, because like I obviously know what you get up to as a journalist who works for the Athletic and he interviews Reece Nelson and Miguel Aziz. I'm so happy he's here. He's got time for us people. He's a big timer. On the serious note, what is it like during the off season? Obviously, there's transfers, but during the season, you're going to press conferences. You know what you're doing. You're doing the reactions to games, very detailed pieces. So like, what are you doing? I assume transfers is one thing or something to do with it. What goes on now?
Well, I mean, you know me, like I'm not really too like big on transfers. I don't really, not that I don't care about them, but they're kind of they're there.
So really, yeah.
So obviously you'd have to do like, I guess, analysis on certain players and stuff like that, which I think everyone's pretty kind of attuned to now. And then aside from that, there's a little other few pieces that like you may do like a feature or something on a certain player or interviews and stuff like that as well. So just a few things that were kind of already in the pipeline, and now I've just got to kind of bash through it and actually get it published and stuff. But nothing too out of the ordinary, really.
What was the Emirates saying? I see you scoring goals, trying to give Arteta your CV.
To be fair, so the kind of content around that is coming out tomorrow.
Keep an eye on it, people. Come on, make sure you're following my guy on his socials as well.
And I only just I managed to sneak onto the pitch. I don't think I was supposed to be on it, and I was like, I saw everyone taking pens, and I was like, come on, I gotta take one.
Right, so yeah, I managed to run on and take one. Are you the reason Saka got better at that?
To be fair, I mean Martinelli's decent at pens as well, so we're starting to get a few in there.
All right, what was I gonna say? I'm being a bit selfish with these questions. Reece Nelson. Now, obviously, me and you are very passionate about Len. For Reece Nelson, his future is still subject to whatever in it. Like, there's every opportunity with more games next season he might play. Obviously, to a degree, the writing may be on the wall, contracted until 2023. Some would argue he needs to probably go somewhere where he knows where he stands and consistently. Where are you at with Nelson and his season? And what do you think the future holds? What would you want the future to hold for him?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think when, I guess you rewind a year back, he obviously was playing no football, no first team football for Arsenal. So this season was all about getting that consistency. And I think almost not, maybe blessing in disguise is the wrong word, but him getting that injury, that groin injury so early on in that loan, I think was probably a wake-up call really to kind of help him to set that season up as he did. So obviously for people who don't know, he got a groin injury pretty early on going out to Feyenoord, and then that meant he didn't start a game until December. In that time, you probably saw, hopefully it came across in the interview.
Go and check that out on the Athletic, by the way, people.
But there was a lot more focus on what he was doing fitness-wise with the sports scientists at Feyenoord, and I think that really helped him. And then you saw back end of the season, he was able to be just more durable, more available. And then with that, you just saw a bit more consistency in terms of performances. It's in terms of future, I know. So basically, when I was doing the interview, I didn't bother asking about that because I
obvious reasons.
Like he's been asked about it before, and he's not going to say anything on it. So
he can't. It'd be just stupid for him to say
something. Yeah, it'd just be a wasted question. But I think from my point of view, as you mentioned, 1 year left on his deal, I think he's probably in a place now, especially after the second half of the season he's had, where he can probably be a bit more confident going into the summer. Whether that be,
Facts.
okay, if I want to move, then I can try and do that. If not, then he's probably highly likely not going to be a starting winger in the Premier League for Arsenal next season. But European football is there, and that can be an avenue to something better. So I think it's all about what he wants, really. Similar to, obviously, what's happened with Nketiah over the past year or so. And I think it's quite important to remember he's only 22 still.
A lot of these players, bro, I think it's quite ridiculous. Obviously, not everyone's going to be a world beater, but it's just funny how I think, especially with potential being the buzzword now, like you've probably seen it. If I'm 16 and I scored 2 goals, I've got all the potential. If I don't hit the heights by 18, I'm damaged goods. So I do think there's a little bit of patience, and I do think you kind of touched on it, and it takes me back to Smith Rowe. It's like when you said about, I listened to the interview, or better yet, read it. He spoke about doing yoga. Smith Rowe's talking about not doing Nando's. Martinelli's had certain sort of things. It's like the penny's starting to drop. I mean, we've all seen Eddie Nketiah's looking a bit physical, and I think his IQ's improved as well now. So it's lovely to see. Do you think, in theory, though, Nelson could get enough game time? Because for me, I think, with Pepe potentially leaving, there's an opportunity here. But, Gab Jesus may be arriving. You can play on the right. There will be the Europa League. We do kind of just need to be getting 3 points week in, week out. Do you think there's enough, let's even say making the Premier League squad? Because I think I badly want Nelson to make it here, but there's a little voice in me that says maybe it's probably best to go somewhere else now.
Yeah, I think what helps him is he can play off both sides. I think we saw...
Probably prefers off the left, innit?
I think so. This season he's played almost equal amount of games, or minutes, I should say, off both sides. Although when he was starting, it was more off the right. And I think going into next season, having that can definitely help. One thing I'd say is Arteta was a big fan of him when he first came in. He was playing him over Nicolas Pepe. And I think going into next year, you almost want to remind him of that if you're Reece Nelson. But that being said, I do almost see it as, okay, that's the first half of the season. It's pretty clear because there is Europe, there is the Europa League group stages are there. But then what happens after that? You don't really...
business then, yeah.
You don't want a repeat of last season where he just didn't get a look in from January onwards. But also, this isn't just a Nelson point, but just a player point in general. Just keep in mind what happens with the Premier League scheduling with the World Cup coming in mid-season, because personally, I feel there's going to be quite a lot of injuries.
5 subs as well.
5 subs too. So I'm not sure how, not just Arsenal, this is Premier League, this is European in general, world general, how big squads are going to have to be to remain competitive, because I do actually fear for just how players are going to be able to get through that. The players who are going to be playing in the World Cup.
Why would you, like, because obviously I know why, but like for someone that might not kind of get where you're going, like I would say you're probably saying that because, as you know, there's a lot of pointless friendlies. Like we've got the Nations League, we've got the season starting earlier, we've got the World Cup, and we've got to play the season. You look at Liverpool, they've had a mad season, pre-season starting quicker as well. Physically is one thing, but mentally recharging yourself must be very difficult. So what do you mean by you think there's more injuries and that?
Yeah, well, I mean, so even if you look at the Nations League for England in June, they have 4 games in 10 days. That's insane.
That's mad.
June 4th to June 14th, they have 10 games. So I feel like that alone, you just see how almost, I'm not sure what the word is, but how risky this can be, because you've got that, then you've got pre-season on top of that. I think typically international players are given about 3 weeks break during the summer, and then they're back into club stuff. And I feel like obviously with the Premier League, there's probably going to be a lot more midweek games as well. So I feel like you're just going to see a lot of burnout from, say, the more elite players. And it's not something that I'm like wishing for or hoping for, but when you just when you think forward like a few months, then it is a bit like, whoa, what is actually going on here? Because say if you take Saka, for instance, he's 20 years old and he's played almost 150 senior games. That's
Closing on
insane.
100 in the league as well next season. He's going to do that. Played every game available, even times like for me with Saka, I look back to the Liverpool game at the Emirates where Robertson used it as a reference point in the piece. Like Saka went into that with a knock, and I think that's been a problem of ours this season. You know, Ben White didn't have the best of games away at Newcastle, but he was playing with a knock. There's been times Tomiyasu, Partey. Again, I guess there'll never be an ideal condition for a footballer and things, but you know, some could be done better. Again, where do you look at the medical department at Arsenal? Because I do think it's harsh, but it does feel like we either players that are never injured come here, they can't stay fit, and we've been dealt a really short hand. So where are you at with that?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because I'm not really privy to what goes on.
Neither am I. That's why I asked you.
So I'm not sure like the full insight I can give on that, but I know there is definitely care that is taken. So in terms of, I remember, so for this piece that is going out tomorrow, it's around kind of data and stuff like that, physical data, around kind of academy recruitment mostly. But I did do a kind of similar piece in around October, I think, where like I spoke to Callum Chambers for that, and I asked him during it, like basically what is training like the training week, and he said, for instance, at Arsenal, I don't know if it's the same at other clubs, but players who don't start on the weekend will have the more intense training sessions at the start of the week, and then it'll reverse like that. So it's not like they don't know what they're doing. But I'm not really privy to exactly everything that goes on in terms of medical stuff, but definitely hope to see some improvements because like you said, you can't have your best players unavailable for long stretches of the season. I think Tomiyasu is probably the biggest example of that for this season just gone.
Like you said, man, and then obviously you've got Partey and Tierney, where probably as football fans we was waiting for it. And ironically, in the topic of Nelson, again, the two are not interlinked, but I always look at it as, I think when Nelson kind of got his groin injury, he kind of spoke about how the sessions are in a degree more intense at Feyenoord than at Arsenal. So it got me thinking, like, what are we doing? Are we doing something that's maybe too specific? And then obviously when it comes to our young players, there's an issue. Moving away from that though, man. Eddie Nketiah, a new deal. What'd you make of it? What'd you make of, what'd you make of it? You know, this 100K a week. We'll probably get it. Ornstein's come out, your colleague, and said, you know what, it's looking like Gab Jesus and Eddie Nketiah to lead the line. Do you think that's enough in terms of output to actually challenge for top four, go as far in the domestic cups and et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I think in terms of Eddie, it's quite, I know we've talked about this before as well, but when you look at player power, it's a very
it's amazing.
Almost it's a really interesting case study if you want to look at it that way, because Nketiah's basically backed himself from minute one of the season starting in not signing, and said basically, give me an opportunity and I'll take it, and that's exactly what happened. So with that, all the cards on his table basically
controls all the power.
I think in terms of Arsenal's position, they almost have to offer him that contract because they don't want to lose him for free, even if he's not, like, say, starting striker quality. If you lose a talent like that, English under 23 talent, for
money,
free,
bro.
basically,
Cash, bro.
And especially considering how selling has been a weakness for Arsenal for a long time as well, that would have just almost compounded that issue. So I think in Arsenal's perspective, they probably had to do that. And I don't think it's the worst thing in the world because, as you said earlier, not just the IQ has got better, but the technique's got better. His all-round game's got better as the season's gone on. And I think when he did get that chance to start over I think it was 8 games,
he's taking
it wasn't just the goals that were impressing people, it was the fact that, unlike Lacazette, he was actually able to stretch defenses. He was able to move with the ball. And I think
win fouls, press high up the
exactly.
pitch consistently, not gas out after 60 minutes. Compared to Lacazette, you're right.
So
still.
yeah, I think having someone who just gives you a bit more flexibility in what you do definitely helps. In terms of Gabriel Jesus, I feel like he's not the killer that personally I would have gone for if this was my
Right.
FM save or
Yeah, no,
whatever.
you're right. Still, you're right. I
Um,
got Darwin Nunes a bit struggling, but silly. You spent the bag for him, but it's cool.
so yeah, I feel like he's one where, and it's weird because I feel like people think just because he's at Man City, he's going to have an easy time. But when you look at the way City play, most of their chances aren't going to their strikers. They're going to the inside wingers. They're going to the players who play in the half spaces. They're not
You
going
just
to
got
the
to clean up
striker.
front, yeah.
So when it does actually come to the times where he does get chances, it's either back post where sometimes he should be finishing, or it's in a crowded area where he's having to work unbelievably hard to get a shot off. So
Facts.
that's kind of an interesting side of his game. I'm not sure if that's the right terminology again, but I don't think people really take notice of that just because he's at Man City, because I think when you look at it, he probably does have to work harder than some strikers to get opportunities because of how packed those boxes can be, because
Facts.
everyone's playing a deep block against Man City. And then when you consider that was probably where Arsenal were struggling last season against teams who were playing in a deep
Very
block.
narrow, congested, deep block, two banks before we struggled still. We
you
did.
you
Burnley
need
at home comes to
yeah
mind.
you need other ways to kind of break that down. So I think I'd be interested to see, because he has got good feet. I feel like he can get out of trouble. It's just he's not as clinical as I probably would like, but still an interesting kind of striker. And obviously fits the profile of what Arteta wants in a striker as well.
Do you think we're like bankers? For me, I definitely am. Like, do you think we're banking on the fact of he's never really been given an extended run up front? Like, I think he's got 8 goals in the Premier League. 4 of them came in a game. I do look at it like there is some qualities. I can see why Arteta likes him. He's, as described by the Brazil gaffer, the best pressing, one of the best pressing forwards in the world. You know, Pep doesn't play down his team aspect, but as you said, ultimately, no matter how much the modern game advances, goals, and he's not exactly the clinical one. If we looked at it on a harsh one, what Eddie's got 5 in 21, my man's got 8 goals this season. You add that together, it's not really significant progress to the 90, 100 goal mark Mikel Arteta was talking about. Yeah, we've got the Haaland boys, but they're learning how to score goals. We can't guarantee that they're going to do it. So it's almost like you said with the Nelson thing. It's when the season then becomes crunch time, when you just need to get the results. You saw what Ronaldo could spur. I mean, United could be a lot worse without Ronaldo. You saw what Kane's done. Kane took half the season off, and he's got decent numbers. Son as well. So it's almost like I'm kind of just giving myself give him an opportunity through the 9 and see what he can do. But then it's catch-22. It's almost like people think signing a midfielder or a number 9 makes the job done. Signing them is one thing. We need consistent movement, and I think that's kind of why we've been able to break down low blocks. Too many times we've played sideward passes, but people have looked up. There's not too much, the Saka into the channels or Martinelli into the channels. It gets red. It gets clocked by teams, and I think you saw that at Newcastle away. So if I could, I would like someone that could do what Gab Jesus does. Obviously scores, and at a push be a bit more of a physical attribute, because I have really liked Eddie Nketiah's improvement physically, like the fouls he's won, the fact that he forces mistakes. I actually wouldn't even rule out him playing on the left-hand side if that's a way to get in. I wouldn't rule it out, fam. Go on.
That's a shout, because he did that in. I know it's only pre-season, but him and Balogun were playing out left last pre-season, and it was just interesting seeing, even though it didn't lead to them playing there long term. Although Balogun did play in a 2 on the left at Middlesbrough. I think that in terms of development just helps them kind of understand their roles even better. Because I remember a few days after the Newcastle game, because that's that theme of almost, okay, Arsenal concede, then the opposition team just sits back, soaks up pressure, Arsenal try and go wide. That's a theme that's been present throughout the season. So after
very
the Newcastle game, luckily I was able to ask Arteta about it, and he was actually okay with talking about it. And the kind of things
See,
he
I
was
just
talking about.
casually said I asked Arteta people. Oh god, we were trying to be like you, man.
but, but what he was kind of saying was there's obviously a few different factors into that. One being sometimes it's the first pass. So, for instance, at Newcastle, you saw Ramsdale was a bit shaky with that first pass, and that just allowed Newcastle to be way more
Press
aggressive.
high, take it off us, and
Exactly.
yeah,
And I think when okay, getting that right is one thing, but then sometimes it can be the structure, which I mean, 3-5-2 with Martinelli left wing back is not going to work.
it's not gonna
It's
happen, man.
and I
Definitely
think
not there as well.
and another thing was the areas you want to play in for the next 5 minutes of a game. And I think that's probably one of the most major ones, because Arsenal, for all the improvements this season in terms of the way they move the ball up the pitch when they're in control, I think they struggle to change the dynamic of a game when it goes against them.
When variables are thrown our way, yep,
And I
100%.
think that having options to do that, whether it is with one up top or say a striker out wide who can come in as a two, I think you need different options. And the
Facts,
squad size last season just didn't cater to that. So that's something that
facts.
definitely needs addressing, kind of going into next season. And I think I want to see a few different ways for Arsenal to attack a game. Hopefully that happens. I don't know if it
I
will.
got to ask you for one name as well, Gnabry, man. I know you feel the same way I do about potentially, if that ever happened, where you at with potentially Gnabry returning? Now, obviously, you don't know, I don't know whether it could happen, but theoretically, where you at, man? The prodigal son returns home, unfinished business, could play as a false nine, left, right. He's not Haaland, but he's basically Haaland, London goalie. So it all makes sense. It all makes sense, bro. He's the reason
Yeah.
why YouTube career started. Full circle business, bro. Where
To be
you at with
fair,
that?
I've got I've got the German shirt from the Euros, the black one,
Hey, same.
over there. And the other day I had plaits in. I've taken my hair out now. I thought to myself, I don't know, like little Navry kind of vibes, but I think in terms of actually realistic, I don't know how realistic that is. I haven't really heard anything about that happening properly. Obviously, I've seen all the excitement on Twitter and that, but I mean, if it was to be potentially, obviously it's a no-brainer. Go and do it. But then again, it's Serge Gnabry. He's not Serge Gnabry of 2015 at West Brom.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Serge
A
Gnabry,
big homie now.
who's won the Champions League, who's been at Bayern for seasons now. I think you're gonna have to come to the table with something.
Serious stuff. Yeah, money,
It,
trophies,
it's, it
everything.
can't just be a sentimental, oh, come back to Arsenal. I don't think that would work with any player, even if they've been at Arsenal before. I think players,
Especially at his age
again,
now.
exactly. I think it's their career, and they're not going to want to take a backward step just for vibes. I think
Literally,
so.
literally. No, you said it there for vibes. That's what it would be. It'd be a bit like Pogba's return to United. I know he won trophies there, but once you get past the euphoria, you want to know how he's gonna play, how he's gonna enhance, how he's gonna move this system along. Because Gnabry is 26, 27. He's someone I would describe as he's for the present, a bit like Xhaka and Partey. What we do with these guys sets up the futures of Saka, Martin Odegaard, etc. So we'd have to know. And you said it there. You'd have to come with a serious package financially. You can't, it's going to have to be maybe something along the lines of maybe less, maybe more of what Aubameyang had. He'd have to be one of the top earners. So these resources are going to have to be utilized. I would love the guy, but whether it happens is another thing. It's gone a bit quiet, but it's still prominent, definitely where midfield is concerned. Where are you at with Telemans? You having that?
I am. I know, like, you've gone. Oh no, you froze for a second, but now you're back.
Yeah, did you hear what I said? I said, what would you make of Telemans, bro?
Yeah, I know it kind of splits opinion on Twitter, but I don't really see it as a bad kind of target. I feel like he's someone, especially if you're looking to go into that 4-3-3 full time, then
fits it.
I think go for it. Obviously, he does have, say, limitations in terms of athleticism, but I feel like if you're a team that wants to control the ball, he's a very good player to have. Not just because he can score from outside the box, but he can play off both feet very well.
He wants it as well.
He actually moves with the ball fairly well too, and I think he just adds another base kind of base level of quality. And you know me as well. I love a technician. So, a technician that can move mostly.
Just, that'd be lit.
So, I don't really see Tielemans as a bad addition. But the one thing I'd say as well is it can't be the only addition in midfield, because
I'm happy you said that. Do you think it would be?
I'm not sure, to be fair. I know going into the summer, it's not. I doubt it's going to be like last summer where they kind of just bought any and everyone under the age of 23. But I think you definitely need additions in quality, because when, say, Partey gets injured, I know Elneny did fairly well at the back end of the year, but you kind of want someone with a bit more quality on the ball to actually cement your place on where you're supposed to be. So that's kind of my view on it.
Would you say that he'd have to move on from? I do think I want to be very careful when I speak about Granit Xhaka. I wouldn't quite say underappreciating. Does he polarize opinion? Yeah, I think when it's all said and done, he's one of our better performers. I do think he's never injured, which is a bonus. I do see what he brings to the team. I do see the mentality. However, I just feel, in my opinion, despite all of this, you're only going to get certain places with him as you're somewhat regular. The team's running through you and things like that. Do you think Arteta what do you think it would mean for Xhaka? And do you think Arteta is arguably going to replace that? Because on one hand, you could say it makes sense to bring in Bissouma or do something for that Partey presence, but also we're going to live or die by our midfield of Granit Xhaka. He's not exactly bad. He's not exactly good at specifically distributing the balls, but he's just not going to get to the next level. Had to. That one there almost played myself into that.
Oh my God.
But I had to pause that. But it's like, I just feel we're never going to see a better Bukayo. I just have this theory that you will see a better Bukayo Saka, Martin Odegaard, etc. once that midfield is sorted, man. So where are you at with that?
I just took me off guard. Oh
I had to, man. So it went off in my head. I tried to just say it so that it was said, but it didn't mess up the flow of things.
So with Xhaka, I feel like it's probably. I feel like it'd be quite an open situation. This isn't me talking like facts, but when you look at how last summer played out, it's very clear that if Roma matched Arteta and Arsenal's valuation for him, they would have let him go to Roma. Then Roma didn't do that, so they gave him a new contract, which was in all aspects to protect his value. So I think if things played out in a similar way this summer, I wouldn't be surprised if he decided to move on. I know, obviously, he kind of talks as if he's staying at Arsenal for the rest of his life, but I think we all know, like, if something came up, then he'd probably take it, I'd say. And I think, again, it's probably a case where either way, whatever happens, I think Arteta would be fine. If they were to, say, part ways this summer, then it's time to not, I say revamp is probably too an extreme word.
I don't think you're wrong. I know where this is going. Upgrade the midfield. Like, that is a chance.
Get people who can move in that midfield.
What would you say, to cut you? Would you say, beyond the obvious, would you say we'd miss Xhaka? Because Arteta makes a big case of what a character he is. Tavares did an interview the other day, and I think when it's all said and done, I listen. If we're trying to build something new, we can't keep people. I hate with that whole good for the young players, good character, all of that. It shouldn't be a thing, but I do think we would lack that. I think we'd lose something with Xhaka. It's almost like, it's not that I don't want to lose him. As you said, if Roma come, they come, and I'm more happy with the fact of it would force Arteta to sign a midfielder, kind of what I wanted to see with this rebuild last summer. Do you think we'd miss him though? Because there has been, as much as it's about talent, it is about mentality at this football club.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's one thing you can't question with Xhaka, especially in certain environments and scenarios and things.
Yeah, I think he would be missed in certain aspects, and especially like football's not just won because a player can kick a ball well.
Amen.
You actually have to be able to see through a match, and I think obviously it does backfire for Xhaka sometimes, quite often.
Quite frequent, yeah.
But as you mentioned, he is one of the few players who's consistently showed what he's about, showed personality. And I think if you were to say part ways this summer, you do lose that with him. It's then who are the next players who are going to be able to say, I'm the guy, I have personality, I can see through this game.
This is the thing. Facts.
And I think, I'm not sure if you can almost, this kind of gets into maybe the players you try to recruit as well, because I don't feel like you can't learn those kind of characteristics.
You kind of got to have it in you, sort of thing. Yeah.
So it's a really difficult one because there should
be leaders in that squad. Odegaard, Lokonga, big song and dance about being captains before we obviously signed them and that. Yeah,
I think that's probably where you saw the recruitment in that sense with those two. I mean, I think it's pretty clear to everyone with Odegaard. Obviously, Lokonga's standing in the squad's not as high, so you've probably not seen it.
Right now, yeah.
But it is an interesting one. I think who are the next guys? I think Gabriel probably is another one who kind of shows that, and Ramsdale as well. But you kind of just need a solid core group
as well. But
so it is definitely kind of an interesting one because you definitely would lose certain aspects, but then in the football sense as well, I think you'd probably be able to have an advantage in certain aspects because you may be able to get better quality in the squad, or a more rounded skill set in the midfield is probably a better way of phrasing it. So yeah,
you're right there. My last question to you, kind of a double-edged one in two. Would you make of Arteta's new deal, and do you feel there should be some level of expectations on him to deliver? Because although we and you both know the project we're doing and all these things, there still isn't the beautiful thing about football. There's still an element of today, and top four. While on one hand we weren't expected to get it in August, and many people would have taken it. The dynamic shift, and fundamentally, whether it's how we started the season, whether it's doing or not doing things in January, whether it was the players and the managers in this last sort of lap of the season, we kind of fumbled it. And whatever way we look at it, the goal is to get back in there. Money's been spent, new deals been landed. Surely there's got to be a degree of expectations now.
Yeah, I think I'll start on that. You need expectation. Like,
facts.
Who's going into next season without expectation, especially after how
what Edu might say in his interviews as well. What going?
But yeah, I think no one should be scared of expectation next season, because at the end of the day, you're looking to improve, and I think the main thing is it's the players and Arteta and his coaching staff that have to prove it. So I don't feel like anyone's under any illusions that there needs to be another kind of step up from what happened in this season just gone.
Amen.
So, and also the thing that kind of, I don't know if it helps or hinders expectation, but there's clear, what's the word? Sorry.
Clear
themes that need to be addressed.
So
if you say what we just spoke about in terms of the profile of the midfield, then if you want to look at a more broad theme, how they respond to adversity in both in game and post game, because when you look at the themes that almost derailed their season, it is, say, going to Tottenham, and it's before the first goal even happened.
It's how you say it. You can see these things.
Because they started fairly well in terms of being able to press high.
But then the first 10 minutes were guys.
Exactly, first 10 minutes. But then no, but so if one part of your plan goes okay, But then when you look at the back half of the team, Rob Holding is man marking Son. If
In
one
a
part
flat
of your
backfield 4.
in a 4, if one part of your setup is good, but the other half is subpar, it's not a good setup overall. So that's where I feel like just the kind of game management needs to kind of
Amen.
improve. And then also, as we spoke about in kind of length earlier, how they actually go about coming from behind in games when teams are just going to sit back and defend low. So you kind of got clear
Facts.
targets, I guess, to go for.
Be a bit more street smart as well, without a doubt.
Exactly. So I think expectations fine heading into next season. In terms of the contract itself, I don't know. I just like it's going to happen anyway. Like,
What do
I
you make of
don't
the timing? Because many
timing.
people, like, I agree with you. It's like it was always going to happen.
Yeah.
Arguably, this season is. I don't like the word free hit, but it's like it kind of is a free hit. We kind of know the expect. We just needed to get back into Europe. But I understand why some fans would have been, all right, why don't you just wait to the end of the season, especially when emotions are raw. It was always going to happen. He said they offered it to him when he lost his 3 games. So I don't know how people are. I don't know, but where are you at with that?
Well, I feel like the timing is probably just almost for them to show everyone they were going to do it, whatever happened. It was probably more that than anything, because if they did it after they crashed out of, say, top 4, then I don't know what the view would have been
Where
of
would
it.
have been, yeah.
But I don't think the timing was that major a deal, really. I just feel like, yeah, it was going to happen anyway. So why wait,
Right
really?
away, yeah. Would you say it was a hindrance, or like, because I don't know how would I articulate this? Obviously, on one hand, it must feel good as a club, like as someone that manages the team. The club is backing you regardless. Like it could obviously help you and enable you to do better, but could also be a hindrance, because with great power comes great responsibility. When you're the manager,
What a line!
it has to be. It has to be. Word to Spider-Man, because you're the manager now. You're not the head coach. You've been picked over all of the beefs with the big players. You know, money's been spent. You know, we're probably going to spend something decent. You've got a very good relationship with Josh Kroenke, it appears, and they similar to what they do at other projects. They seem to be building it around you. And like you said, the timing of the contract, he was going to kind of get it regardless. So would you say it enables him and makes his job easier? Because, okay, internally, it's peace of mind. But then no matter what, you can't control the external. It kind of brings on more pressure because people could be forgiven for saying at times Wenger and Emre weren't afforded certain luxuries that you have. And also, I think we do need to remember, as much as I like Arteta, that we're kind of he's our manager, but we're kind of doing him a favor. Like, it's very extraordinary how he got the role, really. Shout out to him. So yeah, do you think it enables his job, or kind of puts a hindrance going into next season?
I think it should. I don't think it would hinder anything. I think when you have that certainty, that probably wouldn't get elsewhere. So if you look at, say, Everton and Spurs, they appointed Ancelotti and Mourinho at the same time.
Yeah,
they didn't get that certainty. So I think you definitely have benefits from that. It's just about how you deal with it, because as you mentioned, there's probably been a lot of external kind of issues that have come in that you can't predict. So it's how you react to those.
Amen.
Which is probably almost more important than having that certainty, because that is what people are actually going to judge you on. So yeah, I think having that almost security shouldn't really be viewed as a hindrance, because it kind of just gives you that foundation to work from.
Makes sense. All right, so last question for you. Obviously, I'll ask you this. I'll get you on again a couple of times before the season starts, God willing. What's the targets for next season? Without
Top 4.
obviously signings, everything. I love it. I love it. This is why I love speaking to you. You can't. Yes, thank you.
I mean, it has to be. I know you're probably not going to be able to predict what happens in terms of how teams strengthen going into next season.
Amen.
But I think that has to be the objective now, because you obviously people wouldn't have expected Arsenal to get top 4 this season just gone. But they showed that they can be in and around that mix.
We let ourselves down. Like
Exactly.
we imploded before we talk about how good other people are and things, which a lot of it is true. We self-imploded, bro. So I'm with you with that, 100%.
Yeah, I think it's fair for that to be the kind of target because again, they've got a very good squad. Or actually, I don't know, squad might be too far for me to say right now because
got a good core. Could be developing
a
core.
good they got a good core. They got
Fact.
quality players in that core. Now they just need to build around that and have an actual foundation of a proper squad.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking for next season. So yeah, hopefully that's all right.
In fact, last question, yeah. It probably is Saka. So no, Saka's not a question, yeah. Player of the season, underwhelmer of the season. You can't say Saka because you're probably like me. It probably is Saka.
Yeah, like it's annoying because I feel like Saka's like the kind of just go-to for everyone because he played every game, even though he should not have
carried the
played it.
club on the shoulders, and
He should not have played every game, in my opinion. But we'll leave
shouldn't
that
have
for
either,
another
bro. But that will be it for
time.
another live stream.
Yeah, we'll leave that for
Overplayed
another
him.
time.
Killed him.
But I feel like player for me it's either Erdegaard or Tomiyasu.
Fair.
I find it really hard to separate them because I feel
Oh,
Erdegaard
value for
obviously
money, man. Crazy value.
Erdegaard kind of started a bit slow, but then when he came into the kind of his rhythm, I don't think Arsenal would have been anywhere near top 4 without that. And when you consider Arsenal and a possession-based team, attacking team, that's what you need.
That's the player you want. Yeah, literally. That's an Arsene Wenger player. I would have loved him to
Exactly.
play under Wenger too. It's been amazing.
So that's kind of, I don't know, that's leaning towards me saying Erdegaard over Tomiyasu, but I really do like Tomiyasu. And I think he done tremendously well. It's just a shame that he missed about 3 months of the season. Gabriel's a shout from Ak Brava. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Gabriel's a big shout, but I think those two are probably my top 2 picks other than Saka.
Excluding Saka, I'm kind of with you, man. I mean, Odegaard's been a breath of fresh air. Would like him to impose himself in terms of technically and kind of run the game similar to Santi to a degree, but in terms of his development and the personnel behind him, I don't think that's possible. Physically, he could improve. I think he could score more goals, but he got 7 and 4 in terms of 7 goals, 4 assists. So I think there's something with him. Tomiyasu, the only thing you can say is he's not been able to stay fit in this latter stage of the season, but he's been a breath of fresh air. You know, I do, again, similar to themes of the whole season. I think Smith Rowe would have been up there for me, kind of took a tail off. Ramsdale the same. So I think I'm with you between Odegaard and Tomiyasu. I wouldn't say either, but I do think when Partey played, he set down a marker, kind of the same themes with him, that fit and injured, but he was good. I wouldn't say Xhaka would be mine, but I just feel he's kind of damned if he do, damned if he didn't. Like, clearly he's a limited player. There's not much about him, but I don't think he's as amazing as Xhaka sexuals make out. He's not as bad as, I have to call him that. He's not as bad as people get onto him about. I do think if I was to say top 5 performers or top 6, he wouldn't be first, but I think he might be 5th or something.
But, I mean, the good thing is that there's options. Like,
that's the thing. Yeah, there never normally is.
Season before this one just gone, it would have been Saka, Smith Rowe, maybe Erdegaard, who was on loan.
Yeah.
Outside of those 3, I don't really. No one comes to mind really. So the fact there's you can at least fill that 5 top 5 performers. You can fill that easily. I guess shows where they're at. So yeah, hopefully that continues.
Calm, man. Obviously, what content you got to come out? You mentioned an article tomorrow. Make sure you're following him on Twitter and Twitch. People, links have been posted. Make sure you're doing that. what you got to come?
So yeah, a little kind of data piece tomorrow around how Arsenal kind of recruit academy wise. So not anything really to do with the first team, but just more of an insight kind of thing. Then sense. Later in the week, probably some analysis on strikers and stuff. And then when I think probably going to try and spread some stuff out over the next few weeks before I go on holiday. And then I'll probably try and play some games on Twitch as well.
Make sure you're following him on Twitch, man. FM, Harry Potter, the rest, bare things, people. Make sure you're following on that, man. It's been a pleasure to have you, man. I appreciate that, man. I appreciate all your talking points, giving up your time. And obviously, it seems like the people in the chat were fond of it, man. So, yeah, man, I'm going to let you get on with your day. One love for supporting my guy. Appreciative to everybody who's commented. Once again, make sure you're following Art on all his socials. Make sure you're aware of The Athletic as well. I mean, I don't watch many of the people on The Athletic, but listen, he's one of them. And if it's not him, Ornstein, or what's the other one? Amy Lawrence, I don't want to know, to be fair with you, man. Shout all the rest I've missed out. But yeah, people, hit the like button. We're out. In terms of FM, hopeless top four shouts continue at 4:30. We keep going, innit? We keep fighting. Like until the what did Wenger used to say? Until the final whistle, we shall fight.
It's mathematically impossible.
Literally, we keep fighting. That's exactly what I'm doing, man. The target is Champions League. There was no targets in mind at the start of this season either. So I sympathize with a lot of it, man. But people, on a serious note, we're out, man. Safe. You always use that active red light defending. I think it's like